There was a time when people would tremble upon hearing the word Hyperborea, a name for a legendary place where humans are gods, an almost mythical land, birthplace of civilisations and cultures. But this now forgotten land wasn't just a legend. It guided Atlantis, shaped empires, was the spiritual heart of the ancient world, and then vanished in a cataclysm, leaving behind scattered traces throughout history and archaeology, like the sudden emergence of a new type of human, strange climate shifts in Greenland, and in vivid religious stories of a magical land in the north. In this video we will uncover the evidence from buried secrets in the ice to cosmic cycles of time, and trace their origins to figure out when Hyperborea existed, how it shaped our past, and why its legacy is still shaping our world today. I make videos to bring you entertaining and spiritual content in a way that hasn't been done on YouTube before. The goal of this channel is to reach 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So this means you and me, have a lot of work to do. And all I'll ask of you is to subscribe and watch to the end. Also, a huge thank you if you have ads enabled. A disabled ad block on YouTube helps and supports creators like me to deliver you high quality content. It costs nothing but supports us immensely. In the last video, we looked at the connection between Hyperborea and the Golden Age, delved into the spiritual secrets that made it a symbol of this era, the capital and center of spirituality. We discussed how time is cyclical with repeated and predictable patterns, going through age to age. To figure out when Hyperborea existed, we must look deeper at the concept of cyclical time. Take the infamous Mayan long count calendar for example, as we all know, placing huge importance around the date of December 21st, 2012, a date that led many less wise than they were eager to predict the end of the world. But what they misunderstood was that the Mayans were marking the end of a cycle of ages, not the end of the world, like how the Christians always look forward to for some reason. With the end of one cycle comes the beginning of another cycle of ages. Another cycle of ages of prosperity, stagnation, decline and ruin. The Mayans knew that their culture would eventually die, but also live on in a different way, much like Hyperborea and then Atlantis did. The ancients were under no illusions, unlike us modern humans who think everything just keeps going on and on and on without ever changing. The cyclical view of time is a common thread across many ancient cultures, reflecting the deep connection to the natural world and its rhythms. And even today, some cultures still continue to view time as cyclical, just as the ancients did. Which brings us to one of those modern cultures still in touch with its ancient ties: Hinduism. It has maintained its teachings unaltered for at least over 6,000 years through the Vedas. Hinduism still understands time as going through predictable cycles like the Mayans and others did. Their teachings help us place Hyperborea and even Atlantis in history. In Hinduism, these ages are known as yugas. The word yuga refers to yoke, as in two things joining. Yuga also refers to wheel that is turning and a generation or a period of time. Our universe and everything that is part of it goes through this as well, but death doesn't mean the end, it is a new beginning, it is a rebirth. Like how matter and gases in space merge to create a sun, and when this sun reaches the end of its life, it dies and turns into a black hole or a supernova, only for these to spread a matter and gases somewhere else in the universe, continuing the cycle from age to age. In Hinduism there are 4 ages. And this is the age we are currently living in. With knowing this now, we can start to build a timeline of when Hyperborea must have existed. Also, keep in mind this is all quite speculative by me, since I'm attempting to place esoteric and occult teachings into historical context, and on top, linking them with other fields. René Guénon, a French esotericist and philosopher, suggested a different approach to the time frame of the yugas. The Hindu yugas span millions of years. According to him, they must have either been translated wrongly from the source or had additional zeros added to them. So he came up with a formula to calculate them into a shorter time frame. And surprisingly enough, these time frames align well with other known aspects of Earth's history. Guénon gave the following time frame for the yugas: So, with a clear timeline in place, let's look at what was happening in the world during these times and how Hyperborea could have thrived. Given that Hyperborea was the capital of the Golden Age, this time frame places its beginning around 65,000 years ago. And now this is interesting, because this time aligns with the Pleistocene epoch, an epoch which is marked by periods of intense warming, in which the ice sheets covering the northern parts of the world retreated. It is possible that a civilization was able to establish itself at the North Pole during such a warming period 65,000 years ago. Not just establishing, but also thriving. And not just that, this period also aligns with another fascinating phenomenon. You might know that the Earth isn't perfectly upright in space, it's slightly tilted. This tilt also changes in cycles and is known as obliquity, causing the Earth to wobble a bit. During the era of Hyperborea, the Earth's axis had a different tilt compared with today, because the obliquity varies between 22.1 and 24.5 degrees. This phenomenon is called the precession of the ages. This wobbling would have exposed the North Pole to a different angle of sunlight, allowing for more heating. This phenomenon is only possible on a globe Earth, not a flat one. The increased sunlight accelerated melting, resulting in a temperate and ice-free North Pole. This change likely affected ocean currents as well, allowing for water exchange between the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans at the North Pole. So 65,000 years ago, Hyperboreans lived on a North Pole that was completely different from the one we know today. Not only was Greenland almost completely ice-free, but it also looked different and was way warmer. Ice sheets pressed land down. With no ice sheets pressing the land down, it was higher in elevation too. The weather would have been comparable to modern Iceland, up to 15 degrees Celsius during summer and around 0 degrees during winter. A quite stable climate that would not have experienced much change through the seasons, but rather during the switch from polar day to polar night, which lasts 6 months each. This is also supported by drillings done in Greenland. As researchers drilled into the ice sheets covering Greenland, the drill samples contained twigs, leaves and seeds. This indicates that a mildly temperate climate once existed there, and on top of that, the drill samples showed something else. Studies of isotopes within the samples provided detailed records of climate changes over a span of 100,000 years. Digging deeper into the data made it clear, an abrupt and unexpected change on the North Pole happened, something that had fatal consequences for the Hyperboreans and their existence.
O fair Yima, upon the material world the fatal winters are going to fall, that shall bring the fierce foul frost, even on the highest tops of mountains. Therefore make the Avara long as a riding ground on every side of the square, and thither bring the seeds of sheep and oxen, of men, of dogs, of birds, and of red blazing fires.
Ahura Mazda to Yima in the Zoroastrian creation myth found in the Vendidad. Sounds familiar, right? Because it is the well-known flood myth, but instead of a fatal flood, it talks of a fatal winter. It is the only creation myth to do so. Perhaps it was the shift in the tilting of the Earth's axis, perhaps it was a sudden and unexpected change of events, but whatever it was, the temperature suddenly changed, it dropped, the land started to freeze over. Fast. It became colder, way colder, and it caused what we call today the glacial maximum some 36,000 years ago, or better known as the last ice age. Violent and drastic changes of the once temperate climate of Hyperborea, and this Zoroastrian Iranian destruction myth describes what was happening in Hyperborea during the onset of the Ice Age. It is a retelling of the traumatic events that unfolded on the North Pole. It survived with the Hyperboreans and was handed down to later people that descended from them, one of them being Zoroastrians, who eventually migrated further south and became the modern Iranians. Now, how do I come to this conclusion? As mentioned in earlier videos, Zoroastrianism is one of the oldest religions. Its scriptures contains hymns much like the Vedas in Hinduism are. Their sacred texts aren't just scriptures, they are songs. Thousands of years ago, people almost exclusively transmitted wisdom orally. Actually, not because they couldn't write, because they did not trust that the writing would correctly transmit the ideas or meanings of stories. So they made those stories to the tune of a song. This would be easier easier to remember and correctly transmit the intended meaning, much like how you suddenly remember lyrics to a song once it plays. We know that the Vedas came from a place far in the north, likely the remnants of Hyperboreans. Zoroastrianism is very similar to Hinduism. The ancient Iranians, like the ancient Hindu, came from the Eurasian steppe and have the same ancestor, and this common ancestor were the Hyperboreans. Julius Evola suggests in Revolt that because of the disaster, a migration happened in two waves. During these migrations, or rather it was an exodus, Hyperboreans moved at least in two directions. Once over an emerging land bridge into Eurasia, and once over sea towards new territories. By going over land into Eurasia, they likely ended up settling in the regions of the Ural Mountains, and by going over sea, they ended up settling an island just off the coast of northwestern Africa. The island would be the modern-day Azores. They are peaks of mountains that are above water, and those mountain peaks are actually remnants of a big island, one I'm sure you're all familiar with. Atlantis. In any case, this exodus from Hyperborea and the forming of Atlantis would have marked the onset of the Silver Age, some 36,000 years ago. As the fatal winter encroached on the northern hemisphere, it covered most of Europe, the Doggerland and Siberia in ice, snow and dark skies. There was a place out of reach from this mess, exposed to the sun and surrounded by warm waters, offering shelter for the Hyperboreans. Atlantis, the colony of Hyperborea, thrived in this warm climate and developed its own unique, distinct culture, but also carrying on the torch of Hyperborean spirituality. While the other wave of Hyperboreans had to fend for themselves in the Eurasian wilderness during this fatal, harsh winter, the Hyperboreans were literally fighting to survive in the cold Eurasian steppes during the onset of the Ice Age. It is likely that the advanced wisdom the Hyperborean refugees possessed disappeared mostly in favor of hunting for food and making do with the basics. Which makes sense, like how survivors of shipwrecks and similar quickly abandon everything they know about the modern world in order to survive and make do with what they have. On the other hand, the climate of Atlantis was warm and friendly. It enabled this wave of Hyperborean refugees to retain their advancements and even build upon them, creating the now well-known legendary island state of Atlantis, known for its advanced material achievements and responsible for enlightening many civilizations around the world. The exodus of Hyperboreans also coincides with the sudden appearance of Cro-Magnon man in archaeology, which appeared shortly for the first time 56,000 years ago and a second time again around 36,000 years ago. But this time Cro-Magnon man stayed. It seems as if the Cro-Magnon man found in Europe were the Hyperborean refugees, since Cro-Magnon man was very different to the already native humans of that area, almost alien. Cro-Magnon man was stronger, had bigger brain capacity, was more refined and was even sturdier than the current species of humans ruling this continent. They literally were an upgrade. 36,000 years ago, this sudden appearance of Cro-Magnon man or Hyperboreans was responsible for another thing we see in archaeology. As they appeared in Europe, there was already someone ruling there, a different species of human altogether, and a terrifying one at that. One known for being excellent hunters, dangerous warriors, and most importantly, they subdued every other human species that crossed their paths. From Africa to the Middle East to Europe, there was one species ruling. Neanderthals. In archaeology, we see something strange happening once Cro-Magnon man appears. The Neanderthals disappear. They suddenly went extinct and vanished from Europe and the world. They found their end at the hands of the Hyperboreans. Neanderthals finally found their superior. Cro-Magnon man possessed things the Neanderthals didn't: memories and the spirit of Hyperborea. Another thing, Cro-Magnon man out of all the human species is also the most closely related to us modern humans. They are the earliest form of modern humans, so the descendants of Hyperborea are us. We are Hyperboreans. I know all of this may seem quite speculative, even like a stretch, especially with the current evidence, but let me share with you another story the ancient Greeks had, similar to their story of Hyperborea. There once was a great city, a city so rich and powerful that it was the envy of all who heard of it. This city had towering walls that were said to be impenetrable, its people blessed by the gods. It was the setting of epic battles of heroes and legends, a place of romance and tragedy. For centuries, this city existed only in the realm of myth. Scholars and historians believed it was a mere poetic imagination, much like Hyperborea, a fable. You would be an idiot to take it for real, they said. It was only a place of fantasy, they added. But one day, driven by a relentless belief that the stories are true, a lone man set out to find this city of myth. He followed the clues laid out in ancient texts, carefully studying the details of the stories, and ventured to a location that many thought was barren and empty, because it was just that, a barren and empty mound. And as he dug into the earth for grueling years with much ridicule from everyone, one day he uncovered something extraordinary. The ruins of a city, long buried beneath the soil. A city that matched the descriptions from the myths. The high walls, the grand gates, the remnants of a civilization that had once thrived there. This city, once thought to be nothing more than a legend, was revealed to be real. It was the city of Troy. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you want to support me, you can do so over at buymeacoffee.com/numinous diamond.